Hey guys, so I'm here today to talk to you about my journey leading up to me needing surgery. And I ended up having septoplasty with turbinate reduction, which I will go into specifics about a little later in the video. First, I just want to give you a brief summary of kind of what I've gone through that led up to me eventually needing to have the surgery. As a child, I did have asthma, but it just didn't really affect me that much because I only really had flare-ups or wheezing or issues where I needed medication when I was sick. But other than that, I felt like I was pretty good. And when I turned 23, my allergies went out of control. And I had what they call like this horrible triangle of things where I had asthma, eczema, and just allergies like nose stuffiness. I was miserable. I started to get like the stuffy nose, the pain in my sinuses, frequent colds. It all kind of came to a head in 2011 when I started getting really bad sinus infections. I had, I think, 10 sinus infections in 2011, and I was on 9, I think, antibiotics 9 times. And it is really bad for you to be on that many antibiotics, because then your body is not being able to fight infection normally, and it's just not a good thing. And as a nurse, I was like, yeah, I definitely know that I'm not supposed to, be on all these antibiotics. It's not good for my body, and I need to figure out what the root cause of my issues. During that time, I was also having starting to get really stuffy, but it was really severe stuffiness in my nose. It wasn't just oh, I feel kind of stuffy today. It got to the point at the end of 2011 where I literally was short of breath, eating food and talking on the phone, and I couldn't exercise. It was really bad. I would talk and I'd be like, okay, I need a minute. And it was basically because I was pretty much mouth breathing at that point because my nose had been stuffy for so long. It was just swollen. When I went to the doctor, she's like, okay, this is ridiculous. You can't get short of breath when you're eating breakfast. This is out of control. You need to see an ENT and an allergist now. And I was like, duh. So she sent me to an allergist and an ENT. So I had some dairy allergies and I was allergic to mold. I was allergic to mold. This is so weird. Went to the ENT and he did an exam, and I gave him the history that I, had, or what I had gone through basically. And when he did my exam on my nose, he was like, I can't see anything. And I was like, excuse me? What do you mean you can't see anything? And he said, it's just swollen. I can't even really get a good exam because inside of your nose is just so swollen. Now, mind you, at the time of my appointment, I wasn't even sick. I was what I felt like was good during that time. Once I told him that, he was like, oh no, something's obviously wrong. This is a chronic swelling that isn't going away. It was bad, guys. I couldn't even sleeping. I had to prop myself up on 3 pillows to sleep at night. I was sleeping like this. It was awful. And not being able to exercise. It was just so many things were so frustrating. And so he was like, no, we're gonna solve your problem. So let's have you get a CAT scan. So I got a CAT scan on my sinuses. And what he basically found was that I had a slightly deviated septum. And the septum is basically something that divides both of your nasal passages, and it should kind of be right down the middle. But if it's offset, then you're going to obviously have problems breathing through that nostril or whatever. I did have more stuffiness on one side, but at that point I was just completely plugged up on both sides. After the CAT scan, he evaluated it and he was like, okay, he I think prescribed me a nasal spray, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna prescribe this nasal spray. And I was just like, no, I've been prescribed every nasal spray, I've been giving every antibiotic. This is a year in, I'm not doing this anymore. And sometimes just to let you know, you need to be really firm with your physicians because doctors don't know everything and they don't know what you've been through. So it's really important in those moments to just speak your mind. And for me, I was like, no, that's not acceptable because I've had this problem for a year. I refuse to try nasal sprays for 3 more months only to find the same result. I've been on nasal sprays. I've been on this, that, and the other. So he was like, okay, well, the only other option is like a surgical option. And I was like, great, because really, like, I didn't even care at that point. I was like, I want to be able to breathe. I can't breathe. I'm miserable. And I think I almost like started crying in the office because I was just like, this sucks. Like, I want help, but I want it now. So he was like, okay, well, your septum is slightly deviated, so we could correct that, but you have such chronic swelling, I don't know that it will go away on its own. And so I was like, okay, so obviously I need something, you know? He said, well, we could like do a reduction on your turbinates. And if you don't know, turbinates are basically like shelves inside your nose that kind of warm the air you breathe in, and then they have like all these little like feeler guys on them to like grab harmful bacteria and stuff that comes in our nose. And they do swell normally when you're ill, but then they go back down, and hence everyone has a stuffy nose when they're sick, and then when they are better it goes away. Well, for me it didn't, and it was like months and months of chronic infection just permanently like swelled everything up in there. So then he said, okay, fine, you are a candidate based on your history, and do you want to do the surgery? And I was like, where do I sign? I'm so in. The night before surgery, I obviously couldn't have anything to eat or drink because of anesthesia and your risk for choking or aspirating during surgery, so that's why they always say nothing to eat or drink. I went in during the morning, and he was like, okay, the procedure is going to be pretty quick, like 45 minutes. And then he basically told me, like, you'll be up and at it in about a week. And I was like, cool, this sounds great. Well, he definitely left some information out, which is why I'm doing this video. So I had surgery, and they put an IV in me, and they gave me medication to go to sleep, and that is like the weirdest feeling. I felt like I was being like sucked into a tube. That doesn't even make any sense, but when I was going to sleep, I just felt like I was fading away, and like they were talking to me, and I don't really even remember at that point, but it just felt like I was like going further away in this tunnel, and then lights out. So when I actually woke up, it felt like I was coming, it was the opposite. It was so weird. It felt like I was coming like toward the light, and I was like, this is not good. But then it is good because I'm waking up. Anyway, it was just so weird. So I woke up and I had like packing in my nose, and I think that he told me I'd have packing, but I just like, you forget all that when you're waking up from surgery. So I was like, okay, I'm like drowsy, I'm in pain, give me my pain meds. And it was same day surgery, so you go home the same day. It's nothing that you have to stay overnight unless you had complications, which I didn't. So he's like, okay, as soon as I was kind of awake enough, sign your papers, get out of here, and then do a follow-up visit a few days, like I think 2 days later. So he gave me prescriptions for just pain medication. So I think I was prescribed Vicodin, and that was it. So I went home, laid in bed, and the first day I think the anesthesia was still in my system, so I felt pretty good. And I think I didn't even need to take Vicodin until like later that night. The next day I woke up, I was actually in so much pain. My whole like base felt like it was throbbing, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I took my pain medicine, but honestly guys, once I took my pain medicine, I felt really good, so I was fine. I didn't really you know, think the actual post-surgery was that painful. It was a few days later, they have to take out the packing that gets put in your nose. And basically the packing gets put in your nose because they straightened out my septum, and they just need everything to kind of stay in place. So I had to use like a nasal spray during those few days to like clean around my nose. I was just trying my hardest not to like cough too hard and to just not disrupt any of the packing that he had put in. And that's kind of how like the next few days were until I saw him. So then the day came where I had to have my packing removed, and that is probably the worst pain I've had in my life. And I don't want that to discourage you from having this procedure because I feel great now, but it was a lot more painful, and I think purposely no one told me that. It's just because they knew it would be horrible. Luckily for me, I was like, I'm a nurse, and I know like it's really good to give yourself medication before you're gonna enter that like horrible pain zone. So I took Vicodin before I went in, and they just basically pull the packing out of each side of your nose. I had it on both, and it feels like it's never ending. It feels like they're pulling packing from like the back of your head. It's like so long, and it's probably just because it hurts, but anyway, they took it out. And I was still pretty swollen. I was swollen for about a week and a half, I felt like, in just this general area. But once they took the packing out, it was a lot better. I actually could take a breath, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually breathe. I was like I was so happy instantly, I can't even tell you, because a year of not being able to like take a deep breath and then to just be able to breathe. If you guys have this issue, you know, you're like, oh my god, it just felt so good. After the doctor took the packing out, there was definitely a few things that I had to change over the next few months. Number one, I had to do like a sinus rinse with I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the neti pot. My original one looked like a little teapot, but this is also a similar thing. It's like a plastic bottle, and it comes with saline packets or like salt, and you basically put it in, mix it with water, and then you literally have to put it in your nose and it comes out the other side. Really helps with general congestion. If you even don't need surgery but you're just really congested, it does help, so I'd highly recommend it. But that's something that he said I had to do twice a day for I think 2 or 3 months, and then he said honestly it's a good like lifetime thing, daily or every few days. So besides the saline rinses, you also need to use a humidifier every night, and to this day I still use a humidifier because I just really like sleeping with one now. But definitely realize that you're going to need to use a humidifier because it helps keep your nasal passages really nice and moist. The worst thing post-surgery is to have like a dry nose because you are still getting some like bloody discharge and stuff, and you're rinsing it out using your saline wash and all of that, but it's just really nice when your nose always feels like moist. And then I think I had another follow-up visit like a month later where he was just checking on me, and by then my nose was pretty much healed, but definitely for that first few weeks my nose was like sore to touch and everything like that. He told me ahead of time, oh, within like a week you'll be back. I felt like really it took like 3 weeks for me to feel like okay, good and not as sore and things like that. And then he said I might still have some swelling from the surgery for about 2 months, so to give it 2 to 3 months to receive the full effects of the surgery. And I had my surgery in September of 2012, so it's been about 1.5 years since I've had the surgery, and I couldn't be happier. I had such good results with this surgery. I honestly don't even think about my sinuses anymore, which is the weirdest thing because that's all I did for every single day for like 2 years straight was think about how miserable I was, and I don't even think about it anymore. I do continue to use the sinus rinses like every few days. The only thing I can say that happened after surgery that I never had before was a dry nose, which some people complain of. It's never gotten to the point for me to need or to have like bloody noses or anything like that. I've never, you know, sometimes I'll have like some like days where it's a little bit bloody, but I feel like that might be once every 2 months. So I try to do the sinus rinse like once a week at least. And it just helps my nose feel kind of moisturized. If I feel like I'm having a really dry nose, I use this. But other than that, since surgery, breathing is great. I could breathe out of both nostrils. Since the day I had surgery, I've had 1 cold, and that was like, I feel like a normal one to get sick once in 1.5 years compared to every single month. And then a little bit of a dry nose, I would definitely say. But other than that, my life has changed because I'm not focused on that anymore, and I can just breathe, I can exercise, and everything is totally different. So if you're having these issues or been suffering from chronic sinus infections for a really long time, or feel like you are in a place where you have this like chronic swelling in your nose, trouble breathing, and you feel like you can't do your normal activities, for me that was the red flag. Once I felt like, okay, I can't have a conversation, I can't go to the gym, those are considered like activities of daily living that you should be able to do every day. And when something intervenes with your activities of daily living, there's definitely a problem. And for me, that was the point that I realized I needed to see a doctor. So like I said, you know, obviously I can't recommend this procedure. I'm not a doctor, but I can recommend that you see a doctor concerning your issues and that you get them addressed, because if you are a candidate for this surgery and you do end up having it, it really does change your life if, you know, you were suffering from chronic sinus problems before. I hope this video helps you guys. If you have any more questions about anything maybe I skipped over too quickly, or just specific things about the surgery itself, or eczema or anything like that, please just let me know. You can leave a comment below and I will respond to everyone, because I know what it's like to go through all these sinus problems, and I just wanted to give you guys as much information and background that I could provide to hopefully help you with your decision to get the surgeries. Like I said, please leave comments below, give this video a thumbs up if you found it informative, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!